and welcome back, this time to the background and recall of book 16 in the Fighting Fantasy series. That's Seas of Blood, and here it is. So because we've got a nautical theme in the book today, I thought I'd move out of my normal room and come down by the river. We've got two rivers that sandwich the apartment here. We've got the Samida here, which is a smaller one, and then over there we've got the Arakawa. Japanese rivers, it would appear, are much cleaner than their British counterparts, and well, as of yet as well, I haven't seen any bodies floating by, which I suppose from fighting fantasy purposes perhaps could be considered a detriment, but anyway, there we have it. So we're back in 1985, and we've got another adventure here by Andrew Chapman. And I would have to say that, you know, upon receiving this and thinking to myself, here we go again, we've got another one by Andrew Chapman, I was a bit, you know, I had a certain amount of trepidation after Space Assassin, and then the slightly better but not all that much Rings of Kether. I was a little bit nervous when I remember reading Seas of Blood for the first time. Let me just give you a little bit of the background to the adventure. It's fairly simple, really. You are a pirate, so he's actually doing a bit of a first there for the Fighting Fantasy series, in that you are a bad guy. Every other adventure up to this point, you'd been a hero. So you're a bad guy, and you are kind of a renowned pirate, and you've got a rival, if you like, called Abdul the Butcher, and you two are known in your home city as being kind of, you know, the two baddest pirates out there. And someone kind of suggests to you while you're in having a night of debauchery, gambling with Abdul, that you should have a contest to decide who is the baddest pirate in the inland sea where this is set, which subsequently was defined as being on the continent of Kool. Now, you readily accept, and basically the whole adventure then is that you've got 50 days in which to set sail from the home city, and you'll part ways, and you'll basically go and loot and pillage and try and get as much treasure as you can. And my recall of this adventure is that in order to win, I think you have to get a grand total of 800 gold pieces, or the worth of 800 gold pieces, to be able to top Abdul. And that if you get to the southern city, I think it's Nippur, and you've only got 600, then he's comprehensively beaten you. If you get to 700, it's a bit of a photo finish, but he edges it. And if you get to 800, then you'll be crowned the victor and essentially win the spoils and come off with the title of the baddest guy in the region. Now, I have to say, I remember this as being a great adventure, and I've actually got it ranked 19 out of 62 on the Fighting Fantasy Gamebooks in my 1994 chart, which is high praise indeed. And higher even is that as a result, Andrew Chapman actually comes in as the top ranked non-Jackson and Livingston book with this, because 1 to 18 are all written by either Jackson or Livingston, in my humble opinion. And 19 Seas of Blood is the first entry not written by those two guys. And when you consider that the other two entries by him, Space Assassin, which is next to bottom, and Rings of Kether only a few rungs higher, it's a kind of remarkable turnaround, because you know, I was thinking this guy's a write-off at that point. But I thought this was a great entry. It had some great creatures. You know, the cover's got, I think, it's a 7-headed Hydra coming out of the sea to attack the ship. There's lots of kind of interesting encounters with mythical beasts like the Rock, the giant bird. it's perhaps got another kind of, Arabian Nights sort of Sinbad the Sailor feel to it, perhaps. And all in all, I thought it was great. And if I recall correctly, one of the ways that you can raise money as well is that as you will attack other ships, you can take their crew hostage and basically sell them on as slaves. So obviously, this book would be cancelled if it was around today in 2026. There's no way that they'd allow that with their wokeness out there now. And in fact, I suspect that the author Andrew Chapman would be imprisoned and probably made to pay reparations to any offended parties. So I guess it's very much a product of its time, but let's give thanks for that. Two things to mention, I suppose, is that one was this book was also made into an adventure for the Sinclair Spectrum computer, and I actually did own the Caesar Blood on the Sinclair. It's done in a completely different format to the book, in that it's still very much open world, but rather than having to get 800 gold pieces or more worth of treasure, there was 20 items that you had to find in the world. So it was actually quite a bit different to the book. And I remember I could never complete it. In order to do so, I had to look at some cheat guide to know where to go, because it was very much more open world rather than giving you choices. So there was things that were hidden in ridiculous places that you would never ever guess where they were. But nonetheless, I thought it was an enjoyable encounter. And then the other one I think is worth mentioning as a kind of fact about this book is I believe Mr. Chapman had indeed expanded out the world that he created for this book, which was the inland sea with its numerous cities along the coast. And he got commissioned to write a couple of books in his native Australia. So presumably on the back of having had some, I was going to say success in fighting fantasy. I mean, in my view, success with the Caesar Blood, but not with the other two. But he's a commissioned author. He's got 3 books that have come out in fighting fantasy series. I think a publisher in his native Australia had basically said, okay, you can write your own series. And I believe the first one of those books was an expansion to some degree of Caesar's Blood, or at least, it used the world of the inland sea as a base. And then I'm going to guess that it had poor sales and it just didn't really work. And as a result, the series got canned, and book 2 in the series never even came out. And I believe that in the internet age, Andrew Chapman had either written the book up and completed it, or indeed had completed it in the past and it just never got published, released it onto the internet for free. So I believe it's out there somewhere, and you can play it. So at some later date, given that I like Caesar Blood, and assuming I still like Caesar Blood, I think it might well be worth looking out for that particular book, seeing if I can acquire it, and maybe reviewing it further down the line. So anyway, that's the background and what I can recall in its essence. So I think all that remains now is to get reading. Just an addendum to my comments at the end there about the unpublished game book, because it looks like I've got them muddled up and I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. So as I was trying to edit the video and put the overlays on last night, I was searching for a cover for the unpublished game book, which I thought was called Ashkar the Magnificent. And when I found Ashkar the Magnificent, I found it was actually a novel. It wasn't a game book. And it was published in 2000. And Andrew Chapman has indeed used the map in Ashkar the Magnificent that was used for the inland sea in the Seas of Blood, and he's not changed the place names. However, that wasn't the game book that I kind of got muddled up with. If you look in Jonathan Green's tome on the history of FF Gamebooks, there's mention of Ashkar the Magnificent and another book called Deathlord, whereby he was planning to use the same maps. So in the late 80s, there was a planned new adventure gamebook series called Australian Adventure Gamebooks. And there was one book published in that series by another author, but apparently sales were so bad that they immediately canned the series. And Andrew Chapman had written a book called Invaders, and that was due to be published in that series, and it didn't see the light of day, even though it was complete, because of the poor sales of the first book. So poor Mr. Chapman got the rug pulled from underneath him on that one. And it's that one that he released as an ebook on a free download some 10 years after the event, because it was never going to see the light of day. And I guess he kind of thought, well, what am I holding on to it for? I might as well just put it out there, which I believe he did. Then there's another planned book in the background, of which information is somewhat lacking, called Deathlord. And the rumour mill is that one was going to be somewhere in the 60s in terms of the Fighting Fantasy game books. But of course, they canned the series at 59. So it looks like he's had the rug pulled from underneath him on 2 occasions with prospective books. Now, the reason that one has probably never seen the light of day, even in an ebook download type format, is because he was writing that one with Martin Allen, and he wrote Clash of the Princes with Martin Allen, so I guess they've got form. And so I guess in order to release it, it would need the permission of both of the authors, so that's a potential stumbling block. And then the other potential stumbling block is that whilst he apparently had fleshed out the world of the Inland Sea, and he'd actually designed a much bigger world around it, when Mark Gascoigne came to write Titan, the Fighting Fantasy World, he at the time basically took all the books, and anything that wasn't Jackson or Livingston, they started creating this third continent that they called Cool, and therefore the Inland Sea got put into the continent of Cool. Now, I would imagine, not being a copyright lawyer, but when Chapman agreed to have Seas of Blood published, I would imagine the kind of copyright and ownership of that went on into the Fighting Fantasy series. So Mark Gascoigne therefore had the right to say, no, this is ours, we're putting it in our world Cool. And that then would have limited Chapman's ability to then put it in any future book where he was hoping to expand out the world. So I'm guessing for that reason, that's why the spiritual successor, as it's apparently been termed, to Seas of Blood, i.e. Deathlord, has never seen the light of day. So I thought I'd just need to put that in as a bit of a correction and clarification for what I said by the river.